We're working on an XR650L. This particular model is a 2009. It's had difficulty starting after it sits for a while. Not when it's warmed up, but when it sits for a while, it has a tendency to not want to start. And the first time, it was witnessed not to have spark. It had some intermittent spark, and then finally it did have spark. So we had to investigate the situation. But initially, we had a spare spark plug along, changed the spark plug, and held it out here on the cylinder block and checked for spark, and that's what we'll show you. You don't need to really remove your spark plug. If you have a spare spark plug along, just put it in the boot and ground it and spin the engine over and see if you've got spark. Alright, there's the no spark condition. Having read online about XRs having CDI box problems and the ability to possibly fix them, I went to investigate the CDI box. And at the time, on a second ride, I actually tapped on the back of the CDI box to get the bike running. It actually stalled 6 blocks down the road. I did continue in both of those 2 rides to ride the bike. Once it warmed up, it seemed to work okay. But on cold startup, it had troubles. So at home, I'm going to look at the CDI box. On the XR, it's located back here. There's usually a side cover on here, but I've taken mine off. So here's the CDI box, and the back side is over here, and if you tap and jostle this sometime, you can get your bike going. We're going to remove this. Okay, 2 bolts take this clamp off, and you can pull the CDI box out of where it's been installed. This is actually the new CDI box that I purchased online. Amazingly, it was only $14.88. After several hundred miles using the $14.88 non-OEM CDI box, I want to let you know that 3 times when starting, the bike has had a poor run, misfire condition. Each time, simply shutting it off and restarting cured the problem. If it becomes detrimental, I will write about it in this video's description. If it isn't written about in the description, it hasn't become a problem. A new one from Honda is approximately $100. Now we're going to try to repair the original one and see if we can use it for a backup. But I looked into the prices on KLR and Suzuki ignition boxes. Suzuki was about $650. The KLR was around $450. So I don't know if the same procedure could be made to work on those, but we're going to work on the XRs here. A lot of this information was online. I'm not the person who investigated and figured it out for the first time. There's still photos online. We're going to show it to you in video format on how to actually get into the pins and fix the pins with a soldering iron and what you're going to try to have to do to fix it. So I've taken it out. We've got 2 fittings we've got to pull back on here and pull these clamps out, and then we have to pull it out of this rubber sleeve that it's in. Again, it was only $14.88 online. I've test driven it and it worked fine, but this is the new one. So we'll pull it out of the rubber, and then we'll look at repairing the original. We're going to cut this off to get at the bad contact points within here. They're under a potting material similar to this. So we can see what we're going to have to remove here. We also can see the thickness of the case here. So we'll take a ruler here and just measure and see what that is. And it appears to be a 1/16 of an inch. So that's what we're looking to cut off here, a 1/16 of an inch. We're going to do that by scribing with a utility knife along here. I'm going to set this piece of steel up so it only sticks out a 1/16 of an inch here on this table saw. Now you can mount it many different ways, but I'm going to C-clamp it down so I just have a 1/16 of an inch overlap, so I can lay this up here and score it. I'll just hold it by hand. Although this thickness is a 1/16 of an inch, for my overlap I've gone and set it for 3/32. I believe that's what's going to give me a good score here. Be sure you have a sharp utility knife. You're going to hold it, and we're going to see how it scores here. We're just going to try this. So you get the idea what we're going to do. We're going to do that over and over, go around the edges until we've cut through this. You can see how thick it is, what I'm doing. So we'll go ahead and do that, and I'll let you know how long it took me to do it. Okay, I'm not getting quite enough bite here. I can see that. I'm going to have to score this larger than what I have. I'm going to have to score it at least 1/8 of an inch to pop this cover off. So I'm going to go back and reset things and let you know how it works out. We've reset it for 1/8 of an inch of a scoring. The other just wasn't going to take the top off. So we're continuing on. Takes not 10, but more like about 20 to 25 score marks per side, and I'm putting pressure on it. I can feel when the blade slips into that slot to where it's gone through the casing, so just feel for that happening. We'll eventually pry this off. Okay, I'm working around the score now. I'm through it many places, and I'm beginning to pry it apart. And eventually, we're after getting the whole plate off here. I don't want to try to take it all off at once because I'll break the cover, but it doesn't really matter if you break the cover. You can put a different cover back on it. After all, it isn't doing you any good if it's no good. So we're just working around here. We broke it in a few places, you can see that. I'll probably go with a different piece of plastic on the back here when I put it back together. But the potting is down here. There's the potting underneath. That's what we're after getting out of here. So we're going to go around and break this cover off now. The scoring got us there. Try to keep a clean line on here. We can file it down later if necessary. We'll be putting silicone back in here eventually and laying a piece of plastic on top of here to adhere to it. So it's not about the beauty of it, it's about the functionality. Prying into the side, once you get it to peel up some, the cover will remove itself and show the potting below it. Up in the corner there, you can just see the printed circuit board, and we have to take this potting material here off of there, and we're just going to use a variety of screwdrivers and needle nose pliers and pick it on out of here and clean that off. Take your time, just use your hands, your fingers at first to get down to the printed circuit board. Okay, on one of the blogs somebody mentioned using a tie strap to get under it. Obviously I'm using the rounded end here and working underneath the material, peeling it up and tearing it off. After about 30 to 45 minutes of picking this material out, I've gotten it down pretty clean. I still haven't looked it over yet to see where the problem lies. But the finish up is going to be taking a toothpick around here and kind of cleaning off some of the remaining material so that I can study it and see where the bad joints are. I expect to find some bad solder pins on here, but I'm going to take a toothpick and clean it up. As we look around the back here, I put a black dot by each of the pins that are bad. Unfortunately, there's 17 of them. Kind of hard to show what makes them bad. But if you look at them under intense magnification, you'll see that there's fine hairline cracks around them, both in the puddle possibly, or right where it makes contact, it's separated from the pin. So that's what you're looking for. We're going to be doing this under magnification. Wipe some more of this off. Gotta make sure you see a change in the solder around the pin. If you used flux, you want to make sure you're just not causing the flux to run. You'll definitely see the change if you haven't soldered before. You'll want to practice before you do this. I don't solder much. It takes the solder and sucks it away around the pin. You're going to have to get in there as small as it is and feed it into it. You can't walk away from it with it worse than it was. You can see that one swallowed it, created a hole there. Yeah, sometimes it'll cause the solder to stick to it. So we've gone around these and worked them in. I'm going to take a little time out here and inspect them under high magnification and see what they look like. I've gone back and studied each pin that I did and looked at it under magnification. And it needs to be under pretty good magnification so you can see any cracks or cavitation around the pin as it comes through the circuit board. You got to get rid of all that. Any pins that are cracked around them, what have you, that's what we've looked for. That's how we found these 17. I did one more while I was doing it here that I'd seen before, so I actually soldered 18 pins. And I've studied all 18 more than once, and the other pins as well, and I'm pretty satisfied with it. Can't sit on these pins. You saw how long I was on these pins. I don't stay long on a pin with the soldering iron. You'll cook the daylights out of the circuit board and you'll ruin it. So observe how I did that. If you're not used to soldering, if you can get your hands on an old circuit board out of a television set or something, you can practice on it. Practice on some of these pins. The solder is a rosin core solder for electrical work, and I'm using a very fine type here, but you can use a thicker type of solder. It's rosin core. The rosin will come out of it. My dad taught me to always pinch the rosin off when I'm done with it to keep the rosin from coming out of it, because it's hollow core with rosin inside of it. Well, what we're going to do is, since I've got it all together now, we're going to take it out and test it on the motorcycle. The motorcycle is an XR650L, and I've got it out back. We can't shock ourselves here, so we have to be very careful in handling this. We'll put it in the bike, hands off, and see if it works. Then we'll figure out a cover for it here, and I'll show you that. Let's go test it. Now you can see I've installed the CDI box that has been repaired, and we're going to try to start the bike and see if it functions. We'll check for spark first before we even try to start the bike, but if everything works okay, we'll have spark and the bike will start and run okay. So let's take a look at it. Paired CDI box is installed, and we're going to check for spark. I hope you were able to see that the spark was good. So all's well. We've got a backup CDI box now. Okay, we're going to try starting the bike for the very first time with the new CDI box that's been repaired in it. We're going to try starting it up. Bike started right up, needed a little bit of choking. XR has always been a little cold-blooded, so what we've tried to do in this video is to show you how to repair the pins on a CDI box. Out of an old plastic paint can along with a heat gun, I was able to make a little box cover. And I took a piece of little light blue foam, some type of insulation here, not very big, and put it inside the box. And put the two pieces together, and just like that. What I want to do is slide a little silicone around it to make it good to the weather. So I'm going to do that. This will turn clear later on, and I can clean up the excess. So I'm not worried about what kind of job I do right now. Okay, we got it on there all the way around. As I say, it'll turn clear, and then we'll put some rubber bands around it for shock resistance, and then we'll be all done. Okay, in the end we surrounded it with some rubber inner tube pieces, just a cap on either end of rubber and then some bands around it to hold it in place, just to give it a little shock-proof resistance. It won't fit in the original rubber boot because it's a little bigger because of that plastic cap I made. So there it is, it's ready to go. Let's take it for a ride.
All right, let's take a ride.